Hello, Dr. Earles.
Hello.
So nice to have you here this morning.
Well, thank you so much. Good to be here.
You are a world-class dermatologist. You've seen movie stars, the greatest, soccer players, the greatest, baseball players. A lot of people have seen you. Why did these people come to see Dr. Earles at your office at 2900 Michigan Avenue in Chicago?
Well, they came to see me because I treated persons that they knew. So before I treated them, I had treated some persons who worked for them. And then they found out that their driver or their servant got from me a treatment which took care of their problems. So then that's how they discovered me, whether it was a baseball player, a football player, or whomever. The people who worked for them gave that information to them.
Did you ever appear in any publications during that time that promoted who you are? Publications such as Jet.
Oh, you mean that type? Oh, yes, yes. I was in Jet magazine. I was in some of the local newspapers. They gave information about who I was and what I did.
And maybe Ebony?
Yes, I was in Ebony magazine, and as you're aware, I think, and many people are, that Ebony magazine was the largest magazine for African Americans in our country.
I often talk to you about hair braiding and hair transplantation and perms, a personal problem for me over years, and the reason for paying out a great amount of money and losing a lot of hair. Could you please tell me how I could have avoided losing my hair and thereby not having to have a hair transplantation? Could you start with maybe the perms? How did the perms bring out the hair, and then go into the braids?
Well, perms straighten the hair, of course, and they can cause hair breakage. And the hair breakage is not a permanent damage to the hair, but the perm that breaks the hair is frequently placed on the scalp as well. There's no purposefully applying the perm to the hair, but sometimes it gets on the scalp. And by getting on the scalp, it can damage the scalp and the circulation, and it can damage the root. And that's one way that perms can cause permanent hair loss. But the larger damage to the scalp that will cause hair loss is the braid, the tight braid. And if the braid is pulled tight and it's pulled the root of the scalp. And if you see many, even most African American women with hair that goes either like this in circles or in waves like that, and then when you see it coming from their scalp, it's straight. in their braid is straight, then it is being pulled by a great force. And then it's tied to keep it from straight by a braid, and then the braid continues. So that tension, that tough pull damages the root of the hair. And it damages it so repetitively and severely that it can cause a loss of it, and then not with repetitive, if it continues, then not only will it be lost, but it will not return.
Oh my goodness. So what happens? Here I am. I'm showing up at your office, and I've lost the hair at the top of my head, or I lost the hair around the side of my head, and I have an uneven line. Oh, I hate it. What can I do, doctor, if I come to you?
Well, initially when women came to me because of hair loss, primarily and most severely on the sides, and even on the front and the top, sometimes some of the hair was lost there, but the greatest loss was on the sides. And it occurred because of the super tight braiding. And there was so that was out. So there was a bald area on both sides frequently. Once that hair was out, and it was out and it died. So there was no medicine that could be applied to cause the hair to regrow, because that hair was gone and there was some scar tissue that killed the roots of the hair. So now, what could be done? Is that your question?
Yes, I heard that, at least you told me actually, that you went out to California and you developed something called the Earles flap. How did you use that with patients who lost their hair on the side or in the front, on the top of their heads?
Well, understand that you can take, for instance, you can take a plant in your backyard and you dig it up and you take the dirt and the roots of the plant, and you can take it in your front yard and you dig a hole and you put it down and it'll grow. Plant, grass, any type of any of that type would grow. And so the hair you can do the hair the same way. One can simply take and a piece of the hair and its root and dig it up with say a 3 millimeter, maybe the size of an eraser on a pencil, and dig it up with the hair, the skin and the roots, and make a hole in the front, and place the front where hair was lost, and place that in the hole, and it'll be just like a plant. It'll get the airlines, the blood there, and it'll settle and it'll grow. So then that hair that was growing in the back can then grow in the front. And there are numerous, depends on how much hair loss was occurred because of the procedures that of beauty, if you will, that had been done. Then one could put as much hair in as necessary, and then give the normality of the hair in the front and the sides.
My goodness, that's amazing. So, Dr. Earles, you are the creator of the Earles flap, and we're missing you. We want you to come back and do a few flaps for women. What about for men? Can you do this for men as well?
Well, if you're asking about the flap, now the flap itself was different. The initial hair transplant were called plugs of hair. And how big are the plugs of the hair? It'd be about the size of an eraser on a pen. And that was one way. And so those were done, as you can see how much hair that would give, and you had to have a lot of those plugs. There was another type, but rather than a plug of hair, a piece of hair, say the size of a belt, where there will be, and if you take several inches of a belt, then of the skin with hair, then that's a lot of hair. And there was a male hair transplant where a piece of scalp was taken to the side and placed in the front, and that hair grew. And that was a very magical hair transplant. And I looked at that and I decided that perhaps we could simply take a transplant of a piece of hair, rather than going in the front, would simply bring it around, lift it up, and bring it around to the side and replace the hair loss that was performed by the super tight braids. And so I tried that, and it worked. And so women who had lost their hair on the sides, with their 1.5, sometimes 2 inches on both sides, and their hair had moved back, and which is a very, very common hair loss that's seen in African American women, not by any desire to cause hair transplant, but it was simply because of tight braids, super tight braids. And you see little girls who have hair like this or hair like this, and you look at them on the sides with braids, and the hair is tight up into the braid, and the braids are pulling like that. That unfortunately caused hair loss. And so by taking the piece of hair and putting to that bare hair, replaced the loss of the hair. And of course, I gave them the information so they wouldn't repeat with the super tight braids to cause hair loss again.
Dr. Earles, I know that we have seen a lot of your men patients after a period of 40 years, and their hair transplant was still intact. I said, wow, you were telling me, oh, that's a lawyer, I did a transplant for him. My goodness, it lasts for so long.
Well, yes, it's if you transplant hair that wouldn't be normally lost. For instance, suppose a male had hair loss up here because it runs in his family. Well, if you move that hair from here to there, when it was going to be lost here, it'll be lost there. But now, if you take hair from the back, which may never be lost, and you put it in the front, then it will never be lost as well.
Wonderful. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're head of a medical institution or if you do transplants, Dr. Earles is ready and available for conversations. You can reach him at area code 312-225-7200. As for the mothers who are getting braids for their daughters, be careful. Thank you for coming and visiting with the famous Dr. Earles. He is a history maker. Thank you, Dr. Earles.
Thank you.